Hello there, good morning and welcome to today's Daily Ramble. My name's John, aka Virgil, and this is my ramble, as I said. So if you do like the show, then please hit the like button. Why not subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is obviously called Claret and Booze. And if you hit the bell notification, you'll be advised as and when we go live or upload any shows such as this one. So in today's ramble, I'm going to be talking a little bit, I'm going to give my take on Sunday's 3-1 win against Leeds. I was unable to make the show as I had to act like a taxi service, which is unusual. I'm going to talk about comings and goings in regards to manager in and out, possibly, and a new director of football. Not a sporting director like Mark Noble is, but a proper director of football. Also links regarding Rice and Scamacca. So where to start would be Sunday, 3-1 win against Leeds United. Fantastic performance. Obviously, after going 1-0 down, we feared the worst a little bit, but I've got to say it was joyous, to see us all of a sudden perform in a manner that we know we're capable of was just absolute relief. After a season of watching, let's be honest, pretty poor quality, pretty boring, pretty dour football, especially at London Stadium. I don't get to many away games, but some of the games at London Stadium have been a bore fest. But it was great to see us suddenly pick up a bit of form. Now, I know Leeds weren't great, but, we were brilliant. Paqueta, Rice was immense. Paqueta was immense. I thought Danny Ings had a good game. It would have been fantastic if he would have scored to cap off a good display from him, I felt. Fornals was brilliant. How good was it to see both Paqueta and Fornals in the midfield together, almost having a freedom, a freedom to be as technical, to be as lively, to be as free as they wanted to be. Fornals, we know that generally he's been used as almost like a left-sided winger stroke defender. But I thought he was great on Sunday. Paqueta was absolutely instrumental. It was just like, for me, it was just like, where's these performances been all season? We've seen it in bits and bobs. The second half against Arsenal, after going 2-0 down. Man United was, when we won 1-0, we was on the front foot a little bit more. But as poor as Leeds were, we were just brilliant. And if that game was a piece of art, it would be a masterpiece. You couldn't have scripted any of that better, really, in my opinion. Now, there's a famous saying that there's no sentiment in football. And there probably isn't in the main, but it was like the football gods were looking down over the London Stadium on Sunday. And, Declan Rice scoring the equaliser, Lanzini finishing off a fantastic move to score his farewell goal in the 3-1 win. You couldn't have scripted it better. And to me, it was quite an emotional day. For both those reasons I've just mentioned, really. Let's be honest, as much as we hear rumours and we wish and we hope that things will change and Rice will stay, it's more than likely that he will be gone in the summer. And for people like me who aren't going to be able to get away to the Leicester game or indeed into the stadium for the Europa Conference League final, that's the last time I'm going to see Rice play live in a West Ham shirt, unless he comes back when he's about 38. But also, and, probably quite overshadowed somewhat before the game, was the fact that it was Lanzini's farewell as well. And I was begging Moyes to put him on. I was talking to the guy next to me and I was just saying, I hope he gets on 10 minutes, give him 10 minutes. And when he come on, I was quite emotional anyway, the realisation that this was the last time I'd see him. But when he scored that goal, you could see what it meant to not only him, but the rest of that squad everyone to a man ran over to that decapitated flag that he'd kicked over, where he was standing there lapping up their claim from the loving fans that have adored Lanzini. You know, I mean, we know this season he's been very much, you know, the invisible man in terms of playing time on the pitch. But, you know, there's elements of Lanzini that will never be forgotten, a little bit mercurial, a little bit nasty, but never doubting his absolute superb technical ability that the man has. You know, that goal in the 3-3 draw against Tottenham will never be forgotten. But for me, one of the fantastic moments that I remember fondly, as well as that goal, which is the obvious one, was his goal against Palace, when he sort of teed himself up, you know, when he volleyed it up with his left foot to his right foot and smacked it in the goal. That was a fantastic goal. You know, and for me with Lanzini, it's a little bit what could have been. He did have a couple of injuries that set him back somewhat, but there's no doubting that he loved the club and the fans loved him. And at the end of the game, with my son, we stayed around a bit in the stands, had another beer, and some of the players came round, and Lanzini was kind enough to have a selfie with my son, which, you know, my son absolutely loved it. And it was just so emotional, you know. It was a proper fond farewell to Lanzini. And the interesting thing was that I felt that Rice, we know he's going, and it was interesting to see that he almost did a lap of honour, or a lap of appreciation, as is known, on his own at the end there. But let's not talk about that, because we know Rice has to go. And as much as he loves the fans, he'll probably go. I've seen on Twitter, obviously, where the fans are singing during the Leeds game, 2 more years, 2 more years. And Declan Rice is pointing to his head and things like that. And it's interesting to see how things can be twisted. I mean, I might be wrong myself. You know, I'd love nothing more than for him to stay. But, you know, I just think, you know, can we support such a world-class player? Will we ever be able to fulfil his ambition to play in Champions League competitive games? Of course not. And maybe in 10 years' time, but he can't wait that long. You know, we have to wish him a fond farewell, and obviously put to use any funds that we get for him. Now, obviously, as we've been told, as we're constantly hearing, Arsenal seemingly are favourites to get Rice, and the figure is an odd amount, £92 million I've seen banded around today. Now, for purely personal reasons, I would hate Rice to go to Arsenal. In fact, I wouldn't like him to go to any other London club, but I can't see him going up north because he's a London lad, which is why it was interesting today that I read that apparently European giants Bayern Munich have now joined the race to sign him. Now, that's quite interesting, really, because, you know, German teams don't usually spend money like that buying players in. We know they've got a lot of English players in the German league at the moment, but they sort of get them in when they're young, get them in when they're cheap. I can't really see him going to Bayern Munich. You know, I might be wrong, but I can't see them stumping up £90+ million for Declan Rice. So it's more than likely going to be in the Premier League that Rice moves to a team. Obviously, Real Madrid seemingly keen on Bellingham, and that deal is supposedly very close to being done. Sorry, I'm being attacked by a mosquito here. Must be a Tottenham fan. So, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Where's Declan Rice going to go? But, you know, again, like Lanzini, some fantastic memories. And it was quite apt that on Sunday, it was 6 years to the day that he made his debut for West Ham when Bilic brought him on against Burnley, I believe. So, you know, there's a lot of change happening at West Ham. Obviously, Fabianski's contract's up in the summer. Antonio's contract's up in the summer, to name but a few. And it'll be interesting to see what will happen with those players. Ogbonna, another one as well. I just think that a lot depends on what happens in the managerial stakes. Now, I've read an article today through onefootball.com that apparently this article was actually written on the 22nd, but I've only just seen it today. West Ham United manager David Moyes plans to quit the club at the end of the season, regardless of the outcome of the Europa Conference League final clash with Fiorentina. Now, I did a video last week where, and I think people took it a little bit the wrong way, where it wasn't a Moyes bashing video, because, as you know, I've supported Moyes throughout, and even though now I do believe that in the summer he has to go, I'm still actually supporting him in so much as I want him to go out on a high. And if this article's to be believed, Moyes has basically, you know, in effect, resigned from his position, you know, verbally, and has agreed that he will leave the club in the summer no matter what happens in the Europa Conference League final, which takes place on the 7th of June. Now, according to Football Insider, I'm quoting this, by the way, the Scottish tactician will leave West Ham regardless of the result, meaning he could go out on a real high if his team end up lifting the trophy. And for me, that is the best way to go. Go out at the top, David, because, you know, you could win the Europa Conference League final, okay, remain in charge of the club at the start of next season, and if results go the way they have been in the league for the last year or so, let's say, and we don't change our league results and quality of possession and play in the league, then there is a possibility that, you know, come November, Moyes could be getting the sack. So for me, there's no better way of leaving than on a high. Don't overstay your welcome, with all due respect. I think David Moyes has been brilliant for us. You know, 2 years, European competitions, high positions in the league, finishing positions in the league. People will quash all of that, but the facts don't lie, okay? But, yes, the football's been dire in recent times. We know that. So, for me, if that's to be believed and Moyes has realised that his time at the club is up, I hope and pray that he can go out on a high so that his reputation to some extent can be protected. And people will say, what reputation? But let's just remember, the good things he's done. Let's remember some of the good nights we've had under Moyes. It's easy to forget those and concentrate on the negatives. And maybe I've been guilty of that as much as anyone else. But I think it's very important that we realise that. Now, in terms of managers and possible replacements, interestingly, also an article that I read recently was that apparently Sullivan is looking to do things right at the club. Apparently Sullivan, maybe with a bit of a push from Kretinsky in the background, apparently Sullivan is looking to do things right within the club to make the club look more professional, believe it or not, because we often say it's run like a circus. And the rumours are that he's looking to appoint a director of football. Not a sporting director, which is what Mark Noble is, legend, but a proper director of football. And the name that's been mentioned is a name that's been bandied around. A lot of Premier League clubs have apparently looked at this guy, but it's a guy by the name of Tiago Pinto. Now, bloody mosquito, sorry. Tiago Pinto is currently the director of football at Roma. So he works alongside Jose Mourinho. He has been a very popular figure in a short time. He was doing the same job for a team in Portugal. I can't remember the name now. Was it Sporting? I can't remember who it was. But anyway, that's not the point. Tottenham were looking at this guy to replace the Paraticio, who they had to sack because of the Juventus scandal that he was involved in. Apparently, Liverpool were looking at him as well until they decided to go with the Wolfsburg sporting director of football, sorry. And also Aston Villa were looking at him, but they took the guy who was at Barcelona, whose name escapes me. Now, he's been held, Pinto, Portuguese, director of football, he's been hailed by the Roma owner, Dan Friedkin, as a world-class talent. He has very much changed and been a massive part of what's going on at Roma at the moment. Now, as we know, Mourinho won the Europa Conference League with Roma last season in its inaugural season as a trophy, the Europa Conference League. They won it, Roma, the first winners of it. And this year they are into the final of the Europa League. So the progression at Roma has been very good. And Pinto has been a big part of that. In fact, he was very important in the negotiation of renewing the contract of Chris Smalling, ex-Man United centre-back, who's had a great time since going to Italy, who other Premier League clubs were looking at. He's also been a big part of bringing Dybala into the club from Juventus, and also bringing in Nemanja Vidic in from Manchester United. You know, working alongside Mourinho, you know, must be quite a tough gig. But being Portuguese, they obviously get on. There's a lot of mutual respect. And as we know, Mourinho coming to Roma was also in part, a huge in part, in fact, because of Pinto and their relationship. So there's a lot of interest in this for me. And he's a very innovative director of football. In fact, at Roma, he changed a lot on the training ground. He changed the facilities. He changed a lot of the layout of the training ground, the training pitches. He also decided to put a big screen up alongside the main training pitch so that Mourinho could, you know, do quick, sharp analysis there and then whilst the players were on the pitch, warming up, training, etc. So they could look at things there and then. You know, that's quite an innovative idea. That sort of thing usually gets looked at when all the players have gone home and the manager and the coaches may look through training videos thereafter. But to do it there and then with the players, I think that's fantastic. And interestingly, you know, if Moyes is going to go once we've won the Europa Conference League, then the fact that Sullivan allegedly and the club are looking to bring in somebody like Thiago to be director of football leads us to think that there'll be a manager coming in alongside Pinto. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to say Mourinho. That ship sailed a long time, in my opinion. But the main focus would be the Lille Portuguese again manager, which would be Paulo Fonseca. Now, this name, I'm sure you've heard it before. He's been linked with the club before, but there's a massive working relationship between Pinto and Fonseca, especially as the fact that Fonseca was at Roma as manager for 2 seasons prior to Mourinho coming in. Now, that to me sounds like a match made in heaven. That to me sounds like, you know, the dynamic duo coming in to put things right at the club, to make the club look a lot more and act a lot more professional. Fonseca is a 50-year-old progressive, forward-thinking manager. Now, interestingly enough, he does play the same system as Moyes. He does tend, since he's Shakhtar the next days, to play a 4-2-3-1 system. But his 4-2-3-1 system is not a negative, with all due respect to Moyes. It's more of a proactive, on the front foot, attacking 4-2-3-1. In fact, I've read an article and I picked this little snippet out because I thought it was brilliant. Fonseca's tactical mantra is the following: control the ball, control the space, control the game. That's what we want. That's what we want as West Ham fans. We want our players on the ball. We want them zipping it about, control the ball, control the game. Don't stand off. Don't give up possession to the opposition, which unfortunately we have done an awful lot in the last year to 18 months under Moyes. So although they do both play the same formation, 4-2-3-1, they do play it in a very, very different way. Now, just as a little bit of statistics, David Moyes' overall win percentage as a manager across the board, wherever he's been, is 41%. Fonseca's win percentage is 56%. Now that's a massive shift That's a massive upward trajectory in win percentages. So the fact that all these things have come out at a similar time, these stories where Moyes is looking to go in the summer, Sullivan is looking to employ a director of football, and we're looking for a new manager, I think it ties in beautifully, doesn't it? And if we look at Wolverhampton Wanderers, they've got a big Portuguese connection. So there's a massive Portuguese player market that you can tap into. Look at some of the players. Look at some of the Portuguese players that Wolves managed to get in, you know, came in as youngsters and have become really good established Premier League players. It could be something that we go down the same road as. So I'm very excited at three key elements. One, West Ham winning Europa Conference League and David Moyes leaving on a high. Two, Sullivan and or Kretinsky and the rest bringing in a director of football, Thiago Pinto. And he, number three, brings his mate with him, Paulo Fonseca, over from Lille. That to me is exciting. That's the sort of West Ham, that's the sort of progression that I'd like to see at our club. And hopefully, you know, hopefully this can materialise. I don't envisage that everyone would agree with me. I don't envisage that people think this is like some sort of anti-Moyes video because, as I've said, I'm giving Moyes credit where credit's due. I've enjoyed the majority of his time. You know, well, when I say I've enjoyed the majority of his time, I've enjoyed some good nights with Moyes and he's given us some fantastic memories. But for me now, it is a case of win this trophy. Thanks for the memories and adios. And let's maybe see, you know, let's see this new progressive Paulo Fonseca guy coming from Lille who's got a higher win percentage. Let's hope that this happens. All of the above, win the league, director of football, new manager. You know, you can't go wrong, can you? That sounds great, doesn't it? Let's be honest. Now, another little bit of story that I wanted to just talk about really was the whole Scamacca thing. Obviously, I noticed that, and I didn't notice it at first. I couldn't work out who it was, but obviously Scamacca was at the London Stadium on Sunday, and he did do a lap of appreciation with the rest of the players. And I hope that bodes well. I hope that is not a farewell from him. I don't think it is because I'd imagine as an Italian, if he didn't want to do something, he wouldn't. So what I mean is if he was turning his back on the club, then I don't think he'd even be there. And I think a lot of the rumours that people suggest that if Moyes stays, Scamacca will go, that may well be true. So maybe Scamacca's been advised that Moyes will be going in the summer, come what may. Because he has been linked in recent days with a loan move to AC Milan. Now, as we know, AC Milan have got a very aging front line. I mean, you've got Olivier Giroud, who's about 37, 38, and you've got Ibrahimovic, who's about 57 or something. So they're looking to bring in fresh young blood. And Scamacca is apparently top of their list. Now, they're not going to stump up the £40 million or so, or there or thereabouts, to recoup, so that we try and recoup some of our transfer fee that we paid for him. But they would look to take him on loan. That would suit West Ham in order to try and, you know, bring his value back up, you know, let him go over to Milan, score some goals, and his value would not decrease, which is probably what it's done now, unfortunately, in the time he's been at West Ham. However, I'm confident, I'm very confident that Scamacca will stay at the club and give it another go. You know, it's interesting that when he was back in Italy, having surgery and that, and he was out of hospital recuperating, just because he went to an Italian game, people were putting two and two together. You know, I'll watch football wherever I go. And if you're in your own country and you support your team and they're playing, you'd go and watch them, wouldn't you? So I'm hoping that looks good and Scamacca will stay. Well, anyway, look, I've waffled on longer than I thought I would. One other thing, I don't know if you saw, but the Knight of Alkmaar, otherwise known as Nolly, he was at the London Stadium. He was being bought beers left, right and centre in the pub before the game. And when people in the stadium realised who he was standing up and people were singing his name. Interestingly, the West Ham marketing department, you know, they don't waste no time, do they? Let's be honest. They've already brought out this in time for Christmas. It's the Knollsy special. Sorry, I called him Nolly. I meant Knollsy. It's the Knollsy special. You can get this in the club shop now, only $9.99. Why not get it now before Christmas comes, before you are disappointed? Anyway, look, that is my complete waffle and or ramble. Thanks for watching. I've been John, aka Virgil. Hit the like button. Take care. Come on, you ones.